My name is Jesse Bifulco. I'm an estate planning and elder law attorney with 25 years of practice. Over the years, I've learned so much from the families I've helped, and I wanted to share those insights. I've had a rare glimpse into the family lives of many people, and I wanted to share that intersection of life and law. A tuna fisherman once told me, to get the big fish, you have to go out to where the ledge is. That's where the coastal shallows meet the big drop-off on the edge of the really deep water. In our lives, those places where we make choices, or where choices are made for us, choices about life, about our legacy, about our family, and about our property. That's where the ledge is, and that's where I'm going to draw my stories from. At LifeCounsel, we're going to share stories to help you learn about estate planning. But it's about more than legal documents. We're going to fish on the ledge. That's why we called it LifeCounsel, because it's about life. So follow along and you'll learn things you didn't know, and hopefully you'll enjoy the stories too. Today I'm going to tell you part of the story of how I got started in the law, some of my inspiration, and how I came to live on the coast of Maine. So once upon a time, right? That's how stories begin. I learned how to be a lawyer from other lawyers, but mostly from my father. I was born and raised in Staten Island, New York. So was my father, only he grew up on a farm. It's strange to imagine farms in New York City. Growing up, my father told stories about farm life, about the farmhands. Back then, the workers lived on the farm during the growing season. Some were married and had children of their own. My grandmother cooked a common meal for the family and the farmhands. My dad told stories about how the farmers in their community shared their equipment, even seedlings. They helped each other out during hard times. My father loved to garden. That seemed ironic to me because I think he became a lawyer to escape the farm. My parents had 8 kids. I'm number 7. The first 6 kids were introduced as my brothers and sisters. So you can imagine, as a small child, I thought everyone was a brother or sister after a while. My mom was from Brooklyn, New York. My parents dated by ferry. Back then, a Staten Islander marrying a Brooklynite was considered a mixed marriage. Her dad was a plasterer, and her mother was a telephone operator. Some of my earliest memories are of being at my father's law office, probably to give my mother a break. My father would take me there with him to work on the weekends. I remember coloring on onion skin typewriter paper at his conference room table. I couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Clients came in to see him, even on the weekends. Usually it would be a married couple. They came in looking sad, with their eyes down. But after talking to my father for a little while, it was as if they had the weight of the world lifted off their shoulders. They thanked him profusely and shook his hand. I'll never forget how relieved they were after speaking with my dad. I remember thinking to myself, wow, I'd like to do what he does when I grow up. And he never took his clients for granted either. Years later, even during dinner, if a client called, he got up from the table and took the call. Sometimes he didn't return until his food was cold. My mother was a great source of inspiration too. Being a parent was a special calling for her. She made each of us 8 kids feel like we were her only child. My mom had a unique way of encouraging us and bringing out our strengths while gently disciplining our faults. She also gave us one of the most important gifts, the gift of faith. So I thought, when I grow up, I want to help people like my father, and I want to be the kind of parent my mother was. Those were my goals. It was one of the proudest days of my life when I became law partners with my father. We started our own practice. Around the same time, I was also fortunate enough to meet and marry my wife, Christy. Soon we had 3 children of our own. I thought I was achieving my goals. I was working all the time, earning a good living, but was I the kind of parent my parents were for me? One night, after a particularly long, stressful work week, with many charity lunches and dinners, I had a severe pain in my stomach. It was about a week before Christmas. I'd been commuting to and from work, about a 60-mile trip one way. Going to these charity breakfasts and lunches and dinners and meeting clients and working on their files, getting home late and leaving early every day. I had to go to the emergency room and spend the night in St. Vincent's Hospital. As I lay there, I thought to myself, am I living up to the example my mother set? My oldest child was about to start kindergarten. I thought back to my intentions when I got married, to be the best parent I could be. In the blink of an eye, 6 years had passed. Had I been a good husband? Was I a good parent? I was a good breadwinner, but was I moving toward my goals or away from them? In the dim, quiet hospital room, my navy wool topcoat and silk Christmas tie were draped over the visitor's chair. I woke from dozing and sensed someone watching me from the hall. A memory came back to me from my childhood. You can imagine, raising 8 kids in the 60s and 70s, my parents faced challenges. Recession, war, drugs, these weren't invented in the 2000s. But whatever the challenges, my parents overcame them with faith, love, and hard work. I always got the impression they were a little breathless during those years. There didn't seem to be a whole lot of time for reflection. But when I was around 10 years old, it seemed like their hard work was finally beginning to pay off. They made plans to go on a vacation together. They never went anywhere like that. They were finally going to enjoy some of the fruits of all their hard work. Maybe celebrate a milestone. I overheard them talking in the kitchen one night after dinner. My mother wanted my father to make some changes. She talked about how my father should give up the thriving law practice he'd worked so hard to build, but not so he could travel around the world. He should slow things down so he could spend more time with his family. They wanted to spend more time with the last 2 kids. That was my little sister and me, before we got too big to want to spend time with our parents. Shortly after that, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And my mother's insistence, really, they did slow things down. But unfortunately, my mother didn't get to spend that time with us. My father gave up his law practice. He took a less demanding job, a job that made less money too. He became a judge. No more weekends at the office or late nights. He baked pies, made Sunday dinner, and took my little sister and me on a trip to Italy to meet our Italian family. And he still had time to be a great judge. Well, as I lay in the hospital bed at St. Vincent's that night, I remembered my mother's voice talking to my father that night in the kitchen of my childhood home. I should have been home with my 3 little children and my wife decorating the Christmas tree, instead of, as it turns out, suffering from the effects of too many shrimp and cocktails and cannoli. I decided I should slow things down before my kids were all grown up. I wanted to teach them the values and lessons my parents taught me. So I moved the family to a small town in Maine. I spent less time driving back and forth to work and more time being a father. I made myself a deliberate part of my kids' childhoods. To this day, librarians stop me in the supermarket. They tell me how they remember me as the dad who came to the library almost every day to teach his children. Now I'm a recent empty nester. And it's a good thing, too, because I suspect my kids have had probably enough of my lessons for now. So what does that have to do with estate planning? Well, it was a very difficult decision that I made to leave the place where I grew up, to give up a successful law practice. My father, who was my law partner and my friend, was hurt by my decision, and my in-laws, too. After all, my children weren't just my wife and my kids, but our parents' grandchildren. Our parents didn't understand why I thought it was so necessary to make that move, why I thought it was the right thing to do for my family. But ironically, the idea came from them. What I intuitively understood about their intentions as parents, to do the best that they could for us when we were kids. And that's how it's related to planning, because sometimes we only get one chance to do the right thing. It may be a career decision. It may be a decision to sacrifice financial gain to spend time with family. It may be getting the courage to ask your future spouse to marry you, or taking a job in another city. Back when I made my decision to pull up stakes, to give up a valuable law practice and move my family to another state, to a town where we knew no one, I did it because I knew that 10 years can pass in the blink of an eye, and there was no guarantee that I would have the time to spend with my children while they were still children. Before that night, I thought I was doing my part simply by working long hours and earning money. I didn't realize that family life requires work too. If you don't put in those hours too, it may not matter so much that you made a lot of money. And by the time you realize that, you may not have a family to come home to. You're going to face challenges in life no matter what. And without those challenges, you would not have lived. But if you remember and practice what's important, like the ballast in a ship, those challenges are the weight that bear us down, but the stability that keeps us from capsizing when a storm comes along. And storms will come. Ask yourself, what is the thing at the center of your life? Is that thing family? Or is family merely an excuse for going after that thing? Even though I'm just a lawyer, the process of planning your estate is also a way of reorienting yourself, of taking stock, of contemplating things you may not want to contemplate, but maybe you should. Because sometimes you only get one chance to do things the right way. In this podcast, I'm going to talk about estate planning, about wills and trusts and stuff like that, but I'm also going to tell stories. The stories are drawn from my experience, the thousands of families I've been a small part of in their estate plans. Some will be recounted and some will be fictionalized to protect the innocent, as that old TV show used to say. But they're all true. I hope you'll enjoy them and also get something out of it, both for those interested in planning their estates and also younger lawyers starting the journey of their career. Okay, so to get started on your plan, make a family tree diagram. I always start my own client interviews by asking what basic information about their family. What were your parents' names? What was your mother's maiden name? Do you have any siblings? What are their names? Have you ever been married? How many times? Do you have any children? It's a grounding experience and it gets you in the right frame of mind. It will bring back some memories and remind you of who you are and where you came from. In the information section below, we've listed some resources you can use to make your own family tree diagram. Enjoy, and I'll see you next time on the LifeCounsel Podcast. Thank you.